stumbled onto the darkest corners of the internet by accident. Or at least that's what I keep telling myself. The truth is, part of me wanted to see what people are capable of when they think no one is watching. We all keep secrets, but the things some people confess anonymously, they're not the kind of secrets you bury. They're the kind that rot you from the inside out. I knew I shouldn't keep reading, but I couldn't stop. Each confession was like looking into a cracked mirror, showing me just how fragile the boundary is between ordinary life and complete madness. The first post that caught my attention looked almost harmless at first. A simple sentence typed out in shaky lowercase letters. I sometimes wish my wife would never wake up. I stared at it for a long time, waiting for the rest, scrolling down to see if there was context. There was. Just that one sentence, hanging in the void, unanswered and unexplained. The comments were full of people laughing it off, calling it a joke. But I couldn't shake the thought, what if it was? What if someone's sitting at their computer right now, waiting for the moment when that quiet wish becomes reality? That was my first real taste of what I was dealing with. Not monsters under the bed, but monsters in plain sight, smiling at their loved ones by day and making confessions like that by night. Another confession came from someone who worked at a hospital. They said they loved the night shift, not because it was quiet, but because they felt invisible. Their words grew more unsettling the deeper I read. When patients are unconscious, I like to whisper things in their ears. Things no one should ever hear. I know they can't remember, but part of me hopes their dreams are filled with my voice. I had to stop for a moment, my chest tight as I tried to imagine what it would feel like to wake from anesthesia, with fragments of someone else's voice in your mind, like a shadow that doesn't belong to you. The deeper I went, the more confessions blurred the line between fear and fascination. One person admitted they had followed a stranger home for weeks, memorizing their routine, learning the sound of their footsteps in the hallway. They never touched them, never spoke to them. But every night, the stranger lived with the illusion of safety, never realizing that someone was just out of sight, watching, waiting. The post ended with, "I stopped when they moved apartments. I still check the bus station sometimes, just in case I'll see them again." I wanted to stop reading. I should have stopped reading. But the page refreshed, and a new set of confessions appeared, darker than the last. One that made my blood run cold was written in long, shaky paragraphs. It began innocently enough. When I was a kid, my father used to take me fishing. We'd drive out early in the morning, and I always thought he loved it because he loved the water. But I realized later he never cared about the fish. The post continued, describing how the father would go to isolated spots, not because they were good fishing spots, but because they were hidden. I was too young to understand at first, but sometimes we'd come back without fishing at all. My dad would tell me not to tell my mom, and I didn't. I didn't understand until years later when I saw one of the missing posters. The person never finished their confession. They just ended it with, "I think I know what happened to them." And I think my dad wanted me to know too. I had to scroll away, but the images stuck in my head. A child sitting in the passenger seat of a truck, watching their father drive out to a remote spot, knowing but not saying. It was the silence that chilled me more than the acts themselves. And then came the one that made me slam my laptop shut. It wasn't long, maybe 3 sentences, but it cut deeper than any horror story. I work at a daycare. Everyone thinks I'm sweet with kids. I just want to admit I don't like them at all. I only take the job for the access. No explanation, no details, just those words sitting there like poison. I remember packing my room, convincing myself that it was just someone trying to get attention, trying to shock strangers online. But then I thought about how easy it would be to hide behind a screen, how effortless it is to say things that no one in your real life will ever hear. And I thought about those children, their parents probably never suspecting that the smiling face taking care of their kids might be hiding something so dark. That was the moment I realized something. These confessions aren't just entertainment. They're warnings. Every single one of them is proof that the darkest thoughts aren't confined to fiction. They live in the people around us. They sit at the bus stop. They buy coffee in the morning. They wave at neighbors and laugh at jokes. And then they go online and confess things they'll never say out loud. I kept reading. Of course I did. Because once you start peering into the darkness, you want to see how deep it goes. I thought I'd just read a few, enough to satisfy my curiosity. But there was one confession that burned itself into my memory. One I can't stop thinking about. It wasn't the longest, and it wasn't the most violent, but it was the one that felt personal, like it was aimed directly at me. The post started with, "If you're reading this, I want you to know I've been following your account." At first, I thought it was just a coincidence, a creepy attempt at making the confession sound personal to whoever stumbled across it. But the more I read, the more specific it became. You stay up late, don't you? You read these confessions when you should be asleep. You think no one notices, but I do. I've been watching your posts, your comments. You seem like the type who's curious. That's good. Curiosity makes people vulnerable. I froze. I hadn't posted anything, hadn't commented, hadn't even interacted with the site beyond reading. But somehow, this message made me feel like I'd been caught. Like someone, somewhere, was reaching through the screen, watching me as I watched them. The confession ended simply. Number 4 will change the way you see yourself. Don't stop now. And that was it. Nothing else. I sat there staring at the words, my hands cold, my mouth dry. A part of me wanted to close the page and walk away forever. But another part of me, the part that was hooked, needed to know what came next. Needed to know what number 4 meant. I told myself I wouldn't let it get to me. After all, how could a stranger on the internet know who I was, what I was doing, or what I was thinking? Still, the words crawled into my mind and refused to leave. Number 4 will change the way you see yourself. I didn't know if it was a promise or a threat. And maybe that's what made it so hard to resist. The more I tried to ignore it, the more I wanted to find it. So I kept scrolling. More confessions filled the screen, each one a little more disturbing than the last. Someone confessed that they collected stray animals, not to help them, but to see how long it took before they starved. Another claimed to break into empty houses just to rearrange furniture, leaving no trace except for the quiet disorientation of the people who lived there. Each confession was like a knock on a locked door. You didn't know what was behind it, but you couldn't forget the sound. I scanned for numbers, looking for any sign of order, any pattern that might lead me to number 4. Most posts were unnumbered, but occasionally I'd see someone label their confession 1, 2, 3. It was like breadcrumbs scattered along a trail I wasn't sure I wanted to follow. Finally, I stumbled across one. It was labeled simply 1. It read, "When I was 10, I pushed my cousin into the lake and pretended it was an accident. No one ever suspected me. Sometimes I still hear the sound of bubbles rising, and it makes me smile." I shivered and kept scrolling. 2. I used to switch medicine labels at the pharmacy where I worked. No one ever caught me. I stopped, but I think about starting again every day. My stomach turned. These weren't just dark fantasies. These were things people had done. Things they carried like hidden trophies. Then came 3. There's a man on my street who jogs every night. I watch him from my window. Last week, I followed him halfway home. He has no idea how easy it would be. My heart pounded as I scrolled faster. And then, finally, I saw it. 4. It was longer than the others, written in a steady, deliberate tone. Not rushed, not frantic. Almost like the person had been waiting for someone to find it. I've been part of this site for years. I don't post often, but I watch. I watch the readers who stay too long. You can tell who they are. They scroll past everything else, searching for something specific. Searching for this. You're one of them, aren't you? You're here now. That's what I wanted. That's what I planned. My breath caught in my throat. You think these confessions are anonymous, but they're not. Not all of them. Some of us leave markers, signals that only the right kind of person will notice. You noticed. You're exactly who I hoped would read this. You can't stop now, can you? You'll keep going, even though you shouldn't. And by the time you realize what it means, it'll be too late. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. It felt like the room had grown colder. I didn't want to believe it was aimed at me, but the precision of it, the way it seemed to anticipate my reaction, it was too sharp to dismiss. I scrolled away, desperate for distraction, but every other confession felt hollow compared to that one. My hands were shaking, but I couldn't stop. I had to know if there were more. The next few posts blurred together. Someone who confessed they never stopped thinking about killing their high school bully. Another who claimed they lived in a house where the walls moved at night. Disturbing, yes, but not like 4. Not personal. And then, buried between between a dozen shorter entries, I found a continuation. If you've read 4, you know this isn't just a game. You've already proven yourself. Now I want you to prove more. Close your laptop. Look out your window. Tell me what you see. My stomach twisted. I didn't move. Couldn't move. It felt ridiculous, just words on a screen, right? They couldn't actually know. They couldn't actually be there. And yet my pulse hammered so loud I could hear it in my ears. I forced myself to glance at the window. Just darkness. The faint reflection of my own pale face staring back at me. Nothing unusual. Nothing there. But when I looked back at the screen, there was another line waiting. You hesitated, I could tell. I pushed back from the desk, my chair scraping the floor with a jolt that made me jump. My whole body felt like static, every nerve on edge. It was impossible. It had to be coincidence. Some trick, some generic line meant to scare whoever read it. That was all. That had to be all. But I didn't close the laptop. Instead, I kept reading. The post went on. You're curious. That's what I like about you. That's what makes you perfect. Curiosity is what led you here, what keeps you from walking away. Everyone else reads a few confessions and leaves, but not you. You're different. That's why I chose you. My hands were cold as I scrolled further. The next line was shorter. I'll give you a choice. Stop now and never come back, or keep reading and learn the truth. Just know once you see it, you can't unsee it. I should have stopped. I know that now. I should have shut the laptop, turned off the lights, and gone to bed. But instead, I kept going. Because whoever wrote this was right about me. I couldn't resist. I kept scrolling, and somewhere deep inside, I already knew I'd regret it. The next confession didn't have a number. It didn't need one. I've been in your shoes before, sitting there in the glow of the screen, feeling like the words are meant just for me. That's how it starts. That's how they find you. The confessions aren't all real, but some of them are. The ones that feel different, those are the ones you should fear. They're not just telling a story, they're testing you, measuring how far you'll go before you break. I read it twice, my chest tightening with each word. Was this the same person as 4, or someone else warning me about them? The tone felt different, less taunting, and more resigned, like someone who'd already made the mistake I was making now. The next part chilled me. If you're still reading, then you've already been marked. You can close the laptop, walk away, try to forget this ever happened, but it won't matter. You'll start seeing signs. Little things at first, shadows where they don't belong, faces in crowds that seem familiar. You'll tell yourself it's paranoia. You'll be wrong. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. I didn't want to believe it, but the words seeped into me like water into cracks. I knew I wouldn't be able to walk away, not now. Scrolling down, the confessions seemed to blur together. A man who admitted he still drove past his ex's house every night. A woman who confessed to poisoning her sister's plants out of jealousy. harmless compared to what I just read. But each one added to the unease, the sense that I was swimming deeper into waters I couldn't climb out of. Then I saw it again, #5. You didn't stop. I knew you wouldn't. That's what makes you different. That's what makes you perfect. You're willing to go further than the others. Do you want to know what comes next? Then keep going. But don't say I didn't warn you. I slammed the laptop shut. For a full minute, I just sat there in the silence of my room, my heart racing. It felt like the walls were pressing in, the shadows heavier than before. But the silence didn't last. My phone buzzed on the desk. A new notification. No one texts me this late, I thought. My hands trembled as I picked it up. It was a message from an unknown number. You stopped, but you'll be back. My blood turned cold. I dropped the phone onto the desk, staring at it like it might bite me. Rationally, I knew it could be coincidence. Maybe a prank. Maybe someone I knew messing with me. But deep down, I felt the truth settle like a weight in my stomach. This wasn't random. I tried to sleep, but every creak of the house set my nerves on edge. I kept imagining the glow of a screen in the dark. Someone watching me just as I'd been watching the confessions. The next morning, I told myself I'd delete the site from my history. Forget it, move on. But by noon, I found myself back at the desk, the laptop open, the page refreshed. I couldn't stay away. The confessions were waiting. This time they felt different, heavier, as though the page itself knew I'd returned. The first one I saw read, "It always starts the same way. They say they'll quit. They say they'll stop. But they never do. You're already hooked. That's what we count on." I scrolled faster, desperate to find the next numbered post. Desperate and terrified all at once. And there it was. 6. Last night was a test. You failed. But that's good. That means you belong here. You're one of us now. You don't know it yet, but you've already proven it. By coming back. By reading this. By needing to know. I whispered aloud, "This isn't real. It's just a story." But my voice shook, and the empty room didn't answer back. The post continued. "From now on, things will change for you. You'll notice it soon. The patterns, the faces, the feeling that you're not alone, even when you are. Don't be afraid of it. That's just the beginning." I wanted to slam the laptop shut again, but I couldn't. My eyes dragged down the page, hunting for more. Some confessions were random, or at least they seemed that way. Someone admitting to eating food out of strangers' fridges while delivering groceries. Another who carved their initials into the wood of hotel beds they stayed in. Small horrors, petty crimes. But scattered among them were the ones that seemed to speak directly to me, written in that same steady tone. "You're going to start dreaming soon. They'll be strange at first, vivid and unsettling. Don't ignore them. Write them down. They're not just dreams. They're instructions." I sat back, running a hand over my face. My skin was clammy, my heart pounding. And yet, a part of me was curious. What if I did dream? What if the confession was right? That night, I dreamed of a hallway. Endless, narrow, with doors on both sides. Each door had a number. 1, 2, 3. I walked down it barefoot, the floor cold against my skin. My hand hovered over the knob of door number 4, but I couldn't bring myself to touch it. I woke up drenched in sweat, gasping like I'd been running. The first thing I did was reach for the laptop. The confessions were waiting, and the first one I saw made my stomach drop. How was the hallway? I froze. My heart thudded in my chest like a drum. I hadn't told anyone about the dream. I hadn't written it down. I hadn't spoken a word of it out loud. But there it was, on the screen, waiting for me. I couldn't breathe. My dream had been described on the page, as if someone had been inside my head, walking that endless hallway beside me. I slammed the laptop shut again, but it didn't help. The image of the hallway lingered behind my eyes, and worse, the thought that I hadn't been alone in it. I tried to tell myself it was a coincidence. Hallways, numbered doors, maybe it was just a common theme, a trick meant to resonate with anyone who read it. But deep down, I knew better. The confession had been too precise, too personal. I didn't sleep the next night. Every time I closed my eyes, I expected to see that hallway again. I left the lights on, the laptop closed, but the urge to check was unbearable. My phone buzzed once at 3:04 a.m., a notification from that same unknown number. You're avoiding it. That won't help. I dropped the phone like it was burning my hand. My body trembled as I whispered, "This isn't real. This isn't real." But the words felt hollow, like repeating them made them less true. By morning, exhaustion won. I opened the laptop again, telling myself I'd just peek, just to prove there was nothing waiting for me. But the first post I saw erased that lie immediately. You left the lights on. You didn't sleep, but we did. I stared at the sentence until my vision blurred. My hand hovered over the power button, but I didn't press it. Instead, I scrolled, and there it was, 7. The dream was your invitation. You walked the hallway, but you didn't open the door. That's good. That means you're cautious. But eventually, you'll have to open it. We all do. It's the only way forward. My chest tightened. The only way forward. Toward what? The post went on. Until then, you'll keep reading. You'll keep searching. And when you're ready, the door will be waiting. I shut the laptop, but the words echoed in my mind. That night, when sleep finally dragged me under, the hallway returned. The same numbered doors, stretching into infinity. My feet carried me forward, and I stopped in front of door number 4 again. This time, I touched the knob. It was icy cold, like metal left in winter. I twisted it slowly, the click of the lock reverberating through the hallway. But before I could push it open, I woke up gasping, my sheets twisted around me. The first thing I did was reach for the laptop. I don't even know why anymore. Maybe I was addicted. Maybe I was afraid of missing something. Maybe it was both. And there it was. You touched the door. Good, you're almost ready. I slammed the lid shut and whispered a prayer, though I'm not sure to who. The next few days blurred together. I tried to distract myself, work, errands, anything to keep me away from that sight. But no matter what I did, the thought gnawed at me. What was behind the door? Why me? The dreams kept coming. Always the hallway. Always the door. Each night, I got closer to opening it. Each morning, the site had a new post waiting, acknowledging what I'd seen. You hesitated again. Your hand lingered on the knob. You're learning. I stopped telling myself it was coincidence. There was no way to explain it. Whoever was behind this wasn't just writing confessions. They were inside my head. One morning, I woke to find a new confession pinned at the top of the page. Not numbered, but bold. We're getting closer now. You feel it, don't you? The tension in your chest, the way the world seems thinner around the edges. That's because the hallway isn't just a dream. It's real. And soon, you'll see it while you're awake. My stomach dropped. The next confession came quickly after. 8. You can't fight it. You don't really want to. That's why you're still here, reading these words. That's why you haven't walked away. Admit it, you're curious. You need to know what's behind the door. And that need will bring you to us. I whispered, bring me where? But there was no answer. Just the glow of the screen, the silence of the room, and the racing of my heart. That night, I dreamed again. This time, I pushed the door open. The hallway fell silent. No hum of lights, no echo of footsteps, just a stillness that felt heavier than any noise. The door creaked wide, and I peered into the darkness beyond. Shapes moved there, just out of reach, their outlines sharp and jagged, like broken glass. A voice whispered, low and steady, "You're almost here." I woke up screaming. The laptop was already on when I sat up. I hadn't touched it. I hadn't even opened it the night before. But the screen glowed, the site waiting, and the words on it made my blood run cold. "Welcome back, we saw you." I tried to convince myself I was dreaming again, that the laptop couldn't possibly have turned on by itself. But the glow of the screen was steady, the words sharp and undeniable. I reached out with a trembling hand and closed the lid, but the damage was already done. Sleep became impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the shapes behind that door, moving in the dark, whispering things I couldn't quite understand. My body ached with exhaustion, but my mind wouldn't let me rest. The confessions had burrowed into me, and no amount of denial could dig them out. By the third day, I broke. I opened the laptop again, desperate for answers, terrified of finding them. The site loaded instantly, like it had been waiting for me. At the top of the page, a new confession waited. "We knew you'd come back. They always do. The others don't make it this far, but you're different. You're stronger. You're ready to see more." I wanted to throw the laptop across the room, But instead, I scrolled. My heart pounded, my hands slick with sweat. The usual confessions filled the page: petty crimes, cruel secrets, twisted fantasies. But I barely saw them. My eyes hunted for the numbers, and soon enough, I found it. 9. The door is open now. You've seen the shapes. You've heard the whispers. That means you've been chosen. Don't fight it. Fighting only makes it worse. Accept it. Welcome it. That's the only way forward. I sat back, my breath ragged. Chosen for what? By who? My mind scrambled for rational answers, but none came. That night, I didn't dream. Or at least, I don't remember dreaming. But when I woke, the laptop was on again. A new confession glowing on the screen. You didn't dream because we let you rest. You'll need your strength for what comes next. I felt sick. My stomach churned, my skin cold and clammy. I slammed the laptop shut and shoved it into a drawer, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it didn't matter. The connection was already made. Over the next few days, strange things began happening. Little things at first, objects not where I'd left them, doors slightly ajar when I was sure I'd closed them, the hum of electronics when nothing was on. At night, I'd hear faint whispers, just at the edge of hearing, like voices speaking from the walls. One evening, while brushing my teeth, I glanced in the bathroom mirror and froze. For a split second, I saw something behind me, a figure, tall and thin, its face blurred as if smeared across the glass. I spun around, but the room was empty. When I checked the laptop the next morning, the words waiting for me made my skin crawl. You saw us. I slammed the lid shut again, but the whispers grew louder that night. Not words, not yet, but sounds that pressed against my skull, insistent and hungry. The next confession I found was different from the others. Longer, more detailed. We've been watching you for a long time, longer than you realize. The confessions were just the beginning, the bait to draw you in. You read them because you thought you were safe behind a screen. But the screen is a doorway, just like the hallway in your dreams. And once you step through a doorway, there's no going back. I felt a cold weight settle in my chest. My instincts screamed at me to run, but where could I go? This wasn't just online anymore. It was here, bleeding into my life. Then I saw it, #10. It's time. The next time you dream of the hallway, don't hesitate. Step through the door. Walk into the darkness. We'll be waiting. I closed the laptop, but I knew what would happen. I knew I'd dream again. That night, the hallway returned. The doors stretched out into infinity, but my eyes locked on number 4. The knob was warm this time, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. I opened it slowly, my body trembling, and stepped into the darkness beyond. The shapes moved around me, whispering in voices that weren't voices, sounds that weren't sounds. My vision swam, my chest constricted, but I kept walking. Somewhere ahead, a light flickered, pale, weak, but enough to draw me forward. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, pulling me toward the light. When I reached it, I realized it wasn't a light at all. It was a screen, a laptop glowing in the dark, its words waiting for me. "Welcome." I woke with a scream, my sheets drenched with sweat. My laptop sat open on the desk, the same word glowing on the screen. "Welcome." I didn't remember opening the laptop. I didn't remember turning it on. But there it was, humming softly, the glow bathing the room in sickly light. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat a frantic drum as I stared at that single word. "Welcome." It felt less like a greeting and more like a sentence, as though I had crossed some invisible line and now stood on the wrong side of reality. I tried to leave it alone. I closed the lid, shoved it under the bed, and walked away. But no matter where I went in the apartment, I could feel it, like a presence just out of sight, watching, waiting. By nightfall, I gave up pretending. I pulled it out, opened it again. This time, there wasn't just one word. There was a new confession, waiting as though it had been typed for me in real time. "You did well. You stepped through. Most people never make it that far. They hesitate, they resist, and they vanish. But you walked into the dark. That means you belong to us now." My throat went dry. Belong? To who? To what? I scrolled further down, desperate and terrified, and found what I knew I was looking for. 11. You don't have to be afraid. Fear is a waste of energy. What you need now is obedience. Do what we say when we say it, and you might survive. The word might hit me harder than the rest. My body locked up, the air freezing in my lungs. The sight didn't feel like a collection of anonymous voices anymore. It felt like a trap, like something that had always been waiting, patient and hungry, for me to stumble into it. For the next few days, my life unraveled. I barely ate, barely slept. My phone would glitch out constantly, random numbers calling, static on the line, whispers hidden beneath the crackle. Once, when I held the phone to my ear, I swore I heard someone breathing. On the third night, I woke to the sound of typing. Not just the soft clicking of keys, but frantic, fevered typing. I turned in bed, my heart climbing into my throat. The laptop was open again, the screen flickering. Words filled the page, one after another, like someone invisible sat in front of it, pouring out their confession. But these weren't random admissions anymore. They were instructions. Don't look out the window. The words froze me. My bed sat against the wall, and the only window in the room loomed just a few feet away. The command echoed in my skull. Don't look. Don't look. But the more I tried not to, the more I felt it, the pressure of eyes on the other side of the glass. Watching, waiting. My body screamed at me to look, but I kept my gaze fixed on the laptop. More words appeared. Good, you listened. That's why you're still here. The others, they never listened. And now they're gone. I shut the laptop, and buried it under a pile of clothes. I wanted to believe if I just ignored it long enough, the nightmare would end. But deep down, I knew better. 2 days later, the next confession appeared. 12. There will come a knock at your door. Do not open it. No matter what you hear, no matter what you see, if you open it, you'll never close it again. I laughed when I read it. A hollow, broken laugh that didn't sound like mine. It was absurd, wasn't it? Nothing about this was real. It couldn't be. That night at 3:07 a.m., I woke to the sound. Knock. My blood ran cold. Knock. I stayed frozen in bed, every muscle tense, my breath caught in my chest. Knock. 3 sharp raps, steady, patient. Then a voice. Please help me. It was a woman. Her tone cracked with desperation, trembling with tears. I wanted to move, to rush to the door, to do something. But the words from the confession burned in my mind. Do not open it. The knocking grew louder, harder, the voice more frantic. Please, they're coming. I can't hold them back. I pressed my palms over my ears, rocking in bed, whispering to myself, it's not real. It's not real. It's not real. The knocking stopped. For a long time, there was silence. Then, just before the sun broke the horizon, a final whisper came through the door. You should have opened it. When I checked the laptop the next morning, the new confession chilled me to the bone. You listened. That's good. But you should know we test you for a reason. Every choice matters. Every choice shapes what comes next. And you chose wrong. The words sat on the screen like a curse. You chose wrong. I read them over and over, hoping they'd change, hoping I had misunderstood. But the meaning was clear. Whatever this was, game, nightmare, trap, I had failed a test I hadn't even known I was taking. For the rest of that day, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Not the casual paranoia of too much caffeine and too little sleep, but the suffocating certainty of eyes tracking my every move. Even in the shower, steam clouding the mirror, I swore I saw a shadow move behind me. I thought about leaving, packing a bag, catching the first bus out of town, disappearing. But then I realized something that froze me in place. If this thing could invade my dreams, if it could turn on my laptop without me touching it, if it could make voices knock at my door, where could I possibly go to escape it? That night, I tried something different. I didn't open the laptop. I unplugged it, removed the battery, and shoved it into a closet. Then I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, determined not to sleep. But sleep always wins in the end. The hallway returned, stretching endlessly in both directions. The doors lined up like silent witnesses. My feet carried me forward, unwilling, toward door number 4. The knob glowed faintly, pulsing like before, but this time, the door was already open. A cold wind rushed out, carrying with it the stench of rot and something older, heavier, like rust and earth. I tried to back away, but but invisible hands pressed against my back, urging me forward. I stepped inside. Darkness swallowed me. Not the simple absence of light, but a living, breathing dark that clung to my skin, seeped into my lungs. The whispers returned, louder than ever, overlapping voices that seemed to know my thoughts before I did. Wrong choice, but not too late. I stumbled forward, groping blindly, until my hands brushed against something smooth and cold. Another screen, a laptop glowing faintly in the abyss. Words scrolled across it. You don't understand yet, but you will. We're not punishing you, we're shaping you. Every decision sharpens the blade, and soon you'll cut. My stomach turned. I tried to scream, but the darkness filled my mouth, heavy and choking. The whispers converged into one voice, deep and resonant, vibrating in my bones. Confess. I woke with a jolt, gasping for air, my throat raw as if I really had been choking. The room was silent, too silent, as if the world itself held its breath. I dared to check the closet. The laptop sat where I had left it, dead and lifeless. For the first time in days, I almost felt relief. Until I turned around. On my desk, the laptop glowed, the one I had hidden. I stumbled backward, my legs weak. How could there be two? I hadn't owned two laptops. But there it was, screen open, text waiting. You can't hide from us. Not anymore. The path is chosen. The game is underway. All you can do now is play. I felt tears sting my eyes, frustration and terror boiling together. I slammed the screen shut, but when I blinked, it was open again. Always open, always waiting. The new confession appeared without warning. The number bold and sharp. 13. The next time the knock comes, you must answer. No matter what, no matter who. If you don't, the door will open itself. I didn't want to believe it, but I already knew it would happen. The knocks would come again, and this time, I wouldn't have a choice. I spent the next hours packing, checking the locks on my doors and windows, whispering prayers I hadn't said since childhood. Night crept in slow, relentless. Every tick of the clock brought me closer to 3 a.m. At 3:04, the knock came. Sharp final. Knock, knock, knock. I sat frozen on the bed, staring at the door, every muscle trembling. Then the voice returned, softer this time, almost gentle. It's me. Please let me in. I'm cold. I'm so cold. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But the memory of the confession burned in me. If I didn't open it, the door would open on its own. My hand shook violently as I reached for the knob. The metal was icy, biting into my skin. Slowly, I turned it. The door creaked open. No one stood there. The hallway was empty. I exhaled a shaky laugh, relief and confusion tangling together. But before I could close it again, something slipped inside. Not a person, not a shadow, something else. something that moved too fast for my eyes to follow, sliding past me into the dark corners of my apartment. I slammed the door shut, my chest heaving. The whispers began immediately, curling through the air, wrapping around me. Good, good, you listened this time. The laptop flared brighter, new words etching themselves across the screen. The door is open now, the words on the screen won't close again as tears welled in my eyes. The door is open now, and it won't close again. I wanted to believe it was just a sick joke, some elaborate prank, but the cold in the room told me otherwise. The air had shifted heavier, charged like a storm waiting to break. I could hear it moving. Not footsteps, not exactly, more like a ripple through the atmosphere, a disturbance I could feel in my bones. Every time I turned my head, I caught the faintest glimpse, a flicker of movement in the corner, a shadow bending where no shadow should. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the floor, back pressed against the wall, eyes darting from corner to corner. Every so often, I heard whispers, too faint to understand, like someone talking through water. By dawn, my body was weak, but my mind was locked in a fog of dread. The laptop hummed. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't resist. Another confession had appeared. 14. It's inside now. That means you're part of us. You can't fight it, but you can learn. Watch, listen. And when the time comes, you'll know what to do. I slammed the lid shut, but the whispers surged louder, like angry bees in my skull. My vision swam, the walls trembling around me. I opened the laptop again just to make it stop, and the words shifted instantly. Better, you see. Obedience is survival. I wanted to scream, to throw the cursed thing out the window, but my body refused to move. All I could do was sit there, trapped, as the screen continued to glow. The following nights blurred together. Each one brought new horrors. Sometimes it was the knocking again, but with different voices, children laughing, old men weeping, a chorus of distorted tones that clawed at my sanity. Other times, it was silence, broken only by the feeling of breath on the back of my neck, though no one stood behind me. And always, there were the confessions. 15. You think you're still human. That's adorable. But you've already changed. You've already crossed over. Check the mirror if you don't believe us. I resisted for hours, but curiosity gnawed at me until I couldn't stand it. I stumbled into the bathroom, flipped on the light, and stared. At first, I thought nothing was different. Same tired eyes, same pale skin stretched thin from sleepless nights. But then I leaned closer, and the truth revealed itself. My reflection smiled. I hadn't moved. My lips were still. My jaw was locked in terror. But the thing in the mirror grinned back at me, wide and hungry. I smashed the mirror with my fist, shards raining into the sink. Blood dripped down my knuckles, but I didn't care. I staggered back to the bedroom, only to find the laptop already waiting, words scrolling across its screen. We told you, you're one of us now. For the first time, I thought about ending it, about escaping in the only way left. But before the thought could settle, new text appeared. Don't be foolish. Death isn't an exit. It's just another door. And you've already seen what waits behind doors. I collapsed onto the floor, sobbing into my hands. I couldn't take it anymore. I wanted out. I wanted my old life back, the quiet routine of meaningless days, the dull comfort of anonymity. But that life felt like a dream I'd woken from too soon, slipping further away, no matter how hard I reached for it. The next confession appeared the following night. 16. It's time to prove yourself. The others are waiting. Go to the old rail yard at midnight. Bring nothing. Leave nothing. If you don't come, we'll come to you. I wanted to ignore it. Pretend I hadn't read it. But every fiber of my body knew what would happen if I stayed. The whispers would grow louder. The shadows would close in. And eventually, I wouldn't survive it. So at midnight, I went. The rail yard loomed like a skeleton of rust and decay. Broken cars lined up like coffins on forgotten tracks. The air stank of oil and damp metal. My footsteps echoed too loudly, as if the place itself was listening. In the distance, I saw them. Figures, dozens of them, standing motionless in the shadows between the cars. Their outlines blurred, shifting like smoke. But their eyes, oh God, their eyes glowed faintly, all fixed on me. I froze, every instinct screaming to run. But then, one of them stepped forward. Taller than the rest, its movements smooth and deliberate. It raised a hand and pointed directly at me. The laptop in my bag buzzed, though I hadn't brought it. At least, I hadn't thought I had. But when I reached inside, there it was, glowing, open text flooding the screen. Kneel. My knees buckled before I realized what I was doing. The gravel bit into my skin, but I couldn't stop myself. The tall figure loomed closer, its shadow spilling over me like ink. Good, the laptop read. Now confess. My mouth opened, words spilling out I didn't recognize. Secrets I'd buried, sins I'd never admitted. Every shameful thought I'd locked away came pouring out. The figures leaned closer, whispering in approval, their voices blending with mine until I couldn't tell where I ended and they began. When it was over, the tall one touched my forehead with a finger colder than ice. My vision exploded with light, and for a moment, I saw everything, the doors, the shadows, the faces in the mirrors, the endless hallway stretching forever. And I knew, with a clarity that burned, that I wasn't a victim anymore. I was part of it. When I woke the next morning, I was back in my bed, the laptop humming softly beside me. On the screen, the words glowed. Welcome home. I stared at those words until my eyes burned. Welcome home. They weren't taunting me anymore. They weren't mocking. They felt final. As if the line between where I lived and where they lived had dissolved, and now there was no difference at all. That day, strange things began happening outside my apartment. the street. The cashier didn't look at me, didn't even blink when I handed him money. He just stood there, face slack, eyes fixed on some invisible point beyond me. When I touched his hand, his skin was clammy, cold, like a corpse left too long in the sun. I backed away, groceries abandoned, and ran home. But even in the safety of my apartment, the world felt wrong. The air tasted metallic, heavy, and the light through the windows seemed thinner, as if I were looking at a fading photograph instead of reality. That night, the laptop glowed brighter than ever. Another confession appeared. 17. You've seen it now. The cracks in the world. The others walk blind, but you've begun to notice. Soon, you'll notice everything. I shouted at the screen, demanding answers. Who were they? What did they want? Why me? But the only reply was a new line of text, slow, deliberate. We didn't choose you. You chose us. The moment you opened the page, you opened the door. And now, the door is open both ways. My chest tightened. I wanted to deny it, but deep down, I remembered that first night. How easy it had been to keep scrolling, to feed my curiosity. I had walked willingly into the snare. Over the next days, I noticed more cracks. A woman on the subway whispered to herself, words I couldn't make out, but when she glanced at me, her eyes glowed faintly, just like the figures in the rail yard. A man in the park froze mid-step, like a broken puppet, before slowly turning his head to follow me with an expression that wasn't quite human. The world was unraveling, and I was the only one who could see it. When I returned to the laptop, the next confession was waiting. 18. The others are everywhere. Some know what they are, most don't. They're husks, hollowed out by the same hunger that fills you now. But you're different. You're not hollow. You're a vessel. I slammed the lid shut, but the word hung in my mind like poison. Vessel. A container. Something meant to be filled. That night, I dreamt of the hallway again. But this time, the doors were gone. Only the endless stretch of floor and walls remained, blank and empty, echoing with every step I took. I walked for what felt like hours until finally, I saw a figure ahead. It was me, or rather, something wearing my face. It smiled the way the mirror version had smiled, wide and too sharp. I froze, but the other me didn't. It walked forward, step by step, until we stood face to face. You're almost ready, it whispered, though its lips never moved. I woke drenched in sweat, gasping, only to find the laptop open again. The screen displayed a single sentence. He's right. I couldn't take it anymore. I unplugged the thing, smashed it against the wall, stomped on the pieces until the screen cracked and the keyboard shattered. My chest heaved, relief spilling over me in ragged sobs. But then a soft hum filled the room. I turned slowly. On my desk, whole and untouched, the laptop glowed. That was rude, it read. I stumbled back, clutching my head, a scream tearing from my throat. I couldn't escape it. No matter what I did, No matter how far I ran, it would always be there. The next confession came that same night. 19. There's only one step left. You've confessed your sins. You've opened the door. You've walked the hallway. Now you must share. Write your own confession. Spill your darkest truth. Only then will the transformation be complete. I sat frozen, staring at the screen. My darkest truth. What did that even mean? I had already poured out secrets I hadn't dared admit, even to myself. What more could they possibly want? But the whispers grew louder, pressing against me, suffocating me. My hands moved without my permission, fingers flying across the keyboard. Words poured out, unstoppable. Memories I had buried deep, things I had done and never spoken of. The worst of me spilled onto the glowing page. When I finished, the laptop paused. The screen flickered. Then, slowly, new words appeared. Yes, perfect. Now you are ours. I felt something crawl beneath my skin, a writhing heat that spread through my veins. My vision blurred, my pulse thundered, and for a moment, I thought I would explode from the inside out. Then everything went still. The whispers faded. The shadows retreated. The room felt calm again, almost normal. I collapsed onto the bed, gasping, too weak to move. But before I drifted into unconsciousness, the laptop displayed one final line. Tomorrow, the others will see you for what you truly are. The morning sun streamed weakly through the blinds, but it didn't feel warm. It felt pale, thin, as though the light itself no longer trusted me. I staggered out of bed, my body still aching from whatever had happened the night before. My reflection in the bathroom mirror made my stomach turn. It wasn't wrong this time. It was worse. My eyes were too dark, the whites stained with faint veins of black, like ink bleeding through paper. My skin looked thinner, stretched tight, as if something inside me pushed against it, trying to break free. When I touched my cheek, the skin rippled faintly, like water disturbed by a stone. I stumbled back, hands shaking. The laptop hummed from the bedroom, a low vibration that carried through the walls. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't resist. On the screen, words waited. 20. They will notice you now. The others, the hollow ones. Some will fear you. Some will follow you. All will know you. That is your burden and your gift. I whispered to myself, I don't want this. I didn't ask for this. The text shifted instantly. But you opened the door. You always had a choice. And now you are the choice. I slammed the lid shut, but the words burned behind my eyelids. I couldn't escape them. That afternoon, I forced myself outside. I thought maybe the fresh air would help. Maybe sunlight could burn away whatever infection had taken root in me. But the moment I stepped onto the street, I knew everything had changed. People stared. Not all of them, some walked by as if nothing was wrong, but enough. A man paused mid-step, his grocery bag slipping from his hands as he watched me with wide, horrified eyes. A child tugged on her mother's sleeve, whispering frantically, pointing at me. The mother's face twisted, not with fear, but with recognition. She nodded once, slowly, and led the child away without another word. My chest tightened. They could see it. They could see me. I hurried home, my pulse thundering. But no matter how fast I walked, I felt the eyes following me. By the time I slammed the door shut behind me, I was shaking so violently I could barely breathe. The laptop was waiting, as always. The glow filled the darkened room, the words sharp and inescapable. You've been seen. That is good. That is necessary. The next step is coming soon. I shouted at it, rage boiling over. I don't want the next step. I don't want any of this. For the first time, the screen went black. For hours, I sat there, trembling, waiting for it to return. When it finally did, the new confession made my blood run cold. 21. It doesn't matter what you want. It never mattered. You were chosen because you were willing. You fed your hunger when you scrolled through the darkness. And now, that hunger belongs to us. I tried not to cry, but the tears came anyway. My body shook with quiet sobs, my head buried in my arms. I had wanted distraction, something to fill the empty hours of my life, and instead, I had invited this. That night, the dream returned, but this time, there was no hallway, no doors, only a vast, empty void stretching endlessly in all directions. I stood alone, my breath echoing, when suddenly countless eyes opened in the dark. They blinked in unison, thousands of them, all fixed on me. And then, in one voice made of many, they spoke. You are the door now. I woke screaming, sweat soaking the sheets. My chest burned as if something inside me had shifted, cracked open. The laptop glowed with new words, waiting patiently. Soon you'll understand. Soon you'll confess again. And when you do, the world will confess with you. I wanted to run. I wanted to destroy it all, burn it, bury it, end it. But even as I thought it, I knew the truth. There was no running. There was no ending. Not for me. Not anymore. I didn't open the laptop the next morning. I couldn't. I left it on the desk, screen dark, lid closed, as though ignoring it would buy me a little more time. I showered, dressed, even made coffee like it was any ordinary day. But ordinary had abandoned me long ago. When I lifted the mug to my lips, the bitter liquid turned to ash on my tongue. I spat it out, gagging. My hands trembled as I set the cup down. The surface of the coffee rippled, though I hadn't touched it. I froze. The ripples grew, poolsing outward like something was moving beneath the surface. Then, slowly, impossibly, black letters rose from the liquid, dripping down the sides of the mug. They formed words. We are waiting. The mug shattered as it hit the floor. My breath came in ragged gasps. There was no safe place left, no corner of my life untouched. I staggered back to the laptop, defeated. When I opened it, the glow was brighter than ever, almost alive. The new confession stared back at me. 22. The threshold is thin now. All that's left is your confession. Say it. Admit what you've always known. My throat tightened. I shook my head. I don't have anything to confess. The text appeared instantly, sharp and cruel. Liar, you've been confessing since the first word you read. You came here because you wanted the darkness. You wanted the forbidden. You wanted to see how deep the pit goes. Tears blurred my vision. My chest felt hollow, carved out. Maybe it was right. Maybe I had wanted this in some small, hidden part of myself. I'd clicked, I'd read, I'd stayed long after I should have turned away. The screen pulsed. Speak it, or we'll speak for you. My lips moved before I could stop them. The words came out cracked, broken, but undeniable. I wanted to know. I wanted to feel what they felt. I wanted the darkness to touch me. The screen flickered, and for a moment, I thought it had gone out. Then the words appeared, slow and deliberate. And now it has. Welcome, door. The apartment groaned. The air thickened, pressing against my skin like invisible hands. The shadows in the corners stretched, reached, clawed. My ears filled with whispers, not from the laptop, not from outside, but from within. They were inside me. I stumbled toward the door, desperate for escape. But when I opened it, the hallway was gone. In its place was the void from my dreams, endless and black, eyes blinking in the distance. They waited. I tried to shut the door, but it no longer obeyed me. The pull was too strong. The whispers grew louder, 1,000 voices chanting in unison. Confess, confess, confess. My body moved on its own, dragged forward, feet scraping against the floor. The void yawned wider, hungry. And then I understood. This wasn't about me anymore. It never was. I wasn't just another reader, another victim swallowed by the sight. I was the passage, the threshold, the bridge between them and here. The final words appeared on the screen behind me, though I never turned to see them. I felt them burn into my mind, into my soul. Every door must open, and you are ours. I screamed as the void swallowed me. My voice was lost in the chorus, my body unraveling into threads of shadow, pulled into a place that had no shape, no end. And then silence. The laptop sat alone in the apartment, its screen glowing faintly. The cursor blinked, patient, waiting. Somewhere out there, another reader hovered over the site. Another curious soul scrolling through the confessions, heart racing, eyes wide. And when they reached confession number 4, they paused. They read it twice. They didn't believe it at first, but they kept reading anyway. And the door began to open.